Welcome, everybody. So, we're live on Thursday. I forget the days. It's Thursday, April the 11th, 5 o'clock. All right. So, this is how it usually goes I'll cover some announcements and some topics. And if you have any questions, go ahead and lay them on the side. I'll try to get this chat thing going here. Chat. Boom. Here we go. Overlay. Yeah, that looks good. Alrighty. So if anybody's got any questions or anything they want to talk about, go ahead, lay it down. I have an announcement that Dan Buglio from Pain Free You will be joining us April the 18th at 4 p.m. He's also well-known mind body TMS personality, and I had a success story with him in December. It was I check it out if you want to check it out. It was a good interview. It was great. That's when I started to really, you know, upload videos on my YouTube channel. Before that, I was kind of like, meh, here and there. Wasn't really taking it serious. And then, I was also doing my, my cleaning business, focused on doing that. I was more off and on with the mind body thing. I tried being a coach. I was like a year ago, a year and a half ago, and I wasn't having it. As wasn't my thing. It was too overwhelming. I wasn't prepared. I didn't have any of the information ready to go. I didn't have any videos, so it took a lot out of me because I would have like 20 people messaging me a day, and it was constantly talking about symptoms, and I'd have to, if I was helping somebody, I would have to tell them the breakdown of everything and what they're going to do, right? I would give them the breakdown of the program, and that would take me usually 3 to 4 hours per person, sending voice messages. And that would take me, one person, I was done for the day. And then, every day, even, when I started charging for coaching, it was just still wasn't worth it for me. And I didn't enjoy it. I was like, this is too much, too overwhelming. So I said, you know what? I spent the last 2.5 years, 3 years, you know, um, putting the work into recovery. I earned my recovery, and I finally recovered. So I want to enjoy my recovery. I want to, you know, be a little selfish, explore, creating a business and seeing where, because that took me a lot of energy. It took a lot of energy out of me to do that. Um, and it was great because it was growing and making some money and, doing the work. It was hard work. And I thought, I'm going to do this for a while. And then, it's just weird because like a year later, it was kind of like knocking on the door again. It's going, come on, man, you want to do this. I was like, okay, maybe I'll try it again. And then I messaged Dan Buglio. I was like, hey, you want to do that interview? Because I kept putting it off, and then he had a couple cancellations. And then he said, yeah, sure, just go ahead. Here's the link, and you schedule yourself in. I'm like, all right. So then I set up an interview, and then I did some videos beforehand, just so that if people were to come check out the page, that there's some stuff there that they can check out. And it was a great interview. I had a lot of fun, and it sparked a fire within me. I was like, you know what? I love this. I love that. I think I want to do this. I want to help people again, and now I enjoy it because I was prepared. So yeah. After that interview, I started getting traffic here on my page, and I was like, okay, I got to keeping up with it, right? And the more videos I did, the more I enjoyed it, the more fun I had. So I just now it's like that's it's my priority right now, right? I still do the cleaning, and you know what? I like having the balance of each. You go with the cleaning on one side. It keeps it's like a totally different thing. It's like it gives you variety in your day. So one way you're doing cleaning, and then the next day you're focusing on this stuff, and it's fun. So yeah, if anybody's got any questions or comments, anything you want to discuss, shoot, go ahead. We'll talk about symptoms, whatever you want, whatever you got. Um, let's have at her. So, what I wanted to talk about for this video is I want to paint a picture of my first 6 months. So, my first 6 months, because I always talk about the journey and all the things that I dealt with along the way, but I never really talk about the beginning. I do a little bit when I first started to have the histamine intolerant symptom pop up, but I never really got into well, where was I? Where was I? At home? I was mostly at home. I was bedridden from the after my surgery. I was doing surgery and I was recovering like normal. Everything was going the way it's supposed to. And then that's when it was like the eye of the storm. Everything was nothing. I was eating food like normal. I was healing, and then out of the blue, all these symptoms started to pop up. All the 70 symptoms. And I didn't know what was going on in the beginning. I was overwhelmed. I was like, what the fuck's going on? Like, I had no answers. I went down all the rabbit holes, right? I've talked about this many times. I went down all the rabbit holes, tried all these protocols. Nothing was working. And then, yeah, nothing was working. And then, here, I'm going to put the chat back up. I just kept being stuck. So, my days were mostly me being in bed. This was me bedridden. I didn't leave the house ever. I didn't even go, outside to walk even across the street or anything. It was just too much for me. I had chronic fatigue syndrome at the time. Just even going from one room to another room felt like I just, walked 10 kilometers, almost jogging. And, even bringing the groceries up the stairs, I was like, I could not catch my breath. And, this was this was my life at the time for I would say about 6 to 7 months, and 6 to 7 months. And so I was, most of my days was laying in bed and just the four walls of the room and my cell phone, Googling, searching for answers, trying supplements, made me feel worse, trying some supplements that were dangerous that I wish I would have, and they made me feel worse, you know, and I was just stuck with that. And then, after 5 months or so, I finally, or 3 to 5 months, I found the DNRS program and I started it. And I was still using coping mechanism. I was still Googling. I still wasn't sure about it. And then I saw some of the, success stories, and I was like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna jump in 100% and do this stuff. And so I started doing it. And I had a routine at home where I made a tea, or it was like just water, hot water, or I had what's that, nettle tea. I was able to drink that without having any reactions. And I would drink the nettle tea. I would eat beef and rice. That was the my safety foods because I only had two safe foods that I could eat. And then during the day, I'd start doing my visuals, or at the time they were rounds, right? So I started doing rounds, and that was my routine, rounds. Then after that, it was. But before I started having a good routine, before that, I was waking up at around 12 o'clock, 11 o'clock, and I would just get up right before my wife got home because I did not want to face the day. The day was just too much for me to, because it was just a reminder of what you're dealing with, what you can't do, and your symptoms, a reminder of your suffering and the dooms feeling. And so I just woke up so that I wouldn't, my wife wouldn't come home and see that I was still in bed. I tried to, I'd be on the top of the stairs, like trying to hold my shit together. It's like, oh, how was your day? It was good. How was your day? Like I was just trying to get right to how was your day, so we didn't have to talk about my fucking day. And then all I could think about was I can't wait till it's 9 p.m. Go to bed. And I was usually up until I'd say about 3 in the morning, and I wouldn't fall asleep till like 3:30. So I was up late all the time. And I didn't change that schedule for 6 months later until I was doing the program. I was on a routine, and then finally I started waking up earlier. I started waking up at 8:30 in the morning, going to bed at 10, and then waking up at you know 8, and then 7:30, then 6:30, and then it went to 5:30 in the morning, going to bed at like 8 p.m. Early riser, late to bed. I mean, early to bed, right? And then finally spring started to come around. And I was like, okay, I gotta get outside. I gotta start. This is when we started to have a senior dog, and the dog. At first, my wife walked the dog, but I would take it out for a pee, right? Take it out for a pee, bring it right back, or walk it just around the court, and then I would bring the dog around the block. So this was like in March that I started to, so almost early spring. I started to walk it around the block, and then after that, I would walk it twice around the block. And this was a senior animal too, so it would, in the beginning when I had the animal, it still had some energy. Was able to walk maybe 3 kilometers, 4 kilometers with no problems. So then I started to incrementally walk the dog further and further, and then finally I had to break up the day, walk the dog in the morning, a little bit in the evening. This is when I started going out. I had my routine, and I stuck to my routine no matter what. I stuck to my routine, and I had a full schedule. So I had my calendar full out schedule for the week, and I had it busy no matter what. If it was stupid things, like this is where I started driving, doing a lot of errands for my anybody. It's like, oh, I forgot to buy some lettuce at the store. Blah blah blah. I'd be like, I'll get it, even though if it was out of the way. Go to my mom's. I'd be like, hey, do you need something? Blah blah. Yeah, I need lettuce. Go to get some groceries. Come back, drop it off. Come home. Like anybody needed anything. My daughter needed to be dropped off somewhere at her friends. Any reason to get out of the house and do my routine and stay busy, I was doing it. I was wasting tons of gas, right? But it kept me engaged into my routine, and eventually I started to break up my day and walk the dog a couple times a day. Then it was from walk from here to the end of the walkway at a trail. So it's like a 5 minute walk, right? Then eventually it turned to past the trail, up the hill a bit, and going up the hill was really really difficult for me. It was just a little tiny hill. I remember I took my mom for a walk once, and I was struggling, and she was able to make it no problem. And I kept doing that, right? And it just gave me like a bit of a contrast idea. I was like, okay, well, it's normal for her to be tired, but for me to be struggling more than her, that kind of gave me a guide. So I just kept doing that same routine, walking it to the end of the trail, up the hill a bit, walking the end of the trail, but every day I did that until eventually I could go up the hill without even thinking about it, right? And I try not to put my symptoms on a pedestal. I try to just tuck them into my routine so they wouldn't be like, oh, here we go, we're going, up that hill, or we're gonna a lot of anticipation. Here comes that hill, or we're doing it, survival through the hill. We're white knuckling up the hill. It was more eventually. It was like me doing visuals going up the hill. Me going, oh, I'm at the end of the top of the hill. Okay, well, I might as well keep going then, because I want to finish this thought that I was thinking about, this visual, blah blah. So I'd keep going further down the hill, and I'd be like, okay, let's turn around. So eventually that turned to walking 4 kilometers. Two there, two back, and then five there, five back. So then I ended up doing 10 kilometers a day of walking, and then 12 kilometers. And I did that throughout the whole winter. Uh, no, the spring, summer, and then the whole winter. And I just kept doing that. And when the spring came around, right after I was able to walk around a couple of kilometers here and there, I was adjusting to the sun. So I wore a white shirt, long sleeves, and I wore a hat. It was a white hat because I didn't want to attract the sun. I didn't want to have any black clothing because I didn't want to, be more sensitive to what I already was sensitive. So then uh, the sensitivity started to lessen the more I went out, and I was using coping mechanisms. Right, I was using my shirt, my long sleeve shirt, my hat, and eventually I was able to take. It took me about 2 months. I didn't even notice. I was like, oh, I forgot to wear my shirt. That's fine. No, I'm fine. It would be a little hot. I'd be a little bit stressed out, a little bit triggered. Some of the symptoms would show up, but like, yeah, you know what? I'm fine. I can handle this. And then eventually my sunlight sensitivity or light sensitivity went away and I was okay. Um, and that I did that with everything, right? With all of my training, I did that with being out in public, going to the beach. And then usually I went when there was like an event or a holiday and everybody's at the beach. I'm with a senior dog trying to find parking. And I got to make sure that I take care of the dog properly because she's a senior. And then, all these loud muscle cars are fucking around. I'm like, oh, fuck, that's triggering noise is triggering. People are partying, people are loud. And, you get to the beach and then there's a lot of waves. So the water's crashing and making loud splashing noises. And, the dog's barking at me because it wants my attention. It wants to go to the water. So I'm like throwing a stick. And it was a war zone, right? Getting out to the swing of things with going to the beach because I did it no matter what. And it was points where I was like, okay, I'm halfway going to the beach. This is the point of no return. I can just turn back and be at home and safe, be in my safe zone. But I was like, no, let's keep going. Let's expose ourselves to feeling uncomfortable. So I did, and I did that over and over and over again. I remember going that summer to the beach 3 to 4 times a week, and it was an hour and a half drive. So during that hour and a half, I wasted a lot of gas, but it wasn't a waste. It was worth it, right? Because it was going towards my recovery, and I loved going to the beach, and it was a great place to do my training. So going to the beach, triggering myself on purpose, being there with my thoughts, allowing them to be. The first couple months, I was resisting my thoughts, so that made it difficult. But eventually, I was able to allow them to be there and then engage. And this was a big change for me because it made everything a lot easier, right? It's like less of a load on my shoulders. I was releasing some load. I was allowing things to go wild. I let them do their thing, and this allowed my baseline to finally move a bit, and which gave me progress and it made me move forward a lot quicker in my recovery. So yeah, going to the beach every day, no, every 3 to 4 times a day, being triggered every time, and making my circle bigger and bigger and bigger. My training zone got bigger and bigger and bigger. And this is how I started recovering, right? I exposed myself to the things that made me uncomfortable. And yeah, that's how I recovered. I did the same thing with food. I took my time with the food because food takes time because you can't rush food because then you can get trigger yourself really easily and then you're in a flare and you're delayed. And, flares are good to have when your baseline's halfway down and more controllable. Then it's okay to have a flare and then you can control the flare more. You can actually drag the flare out, right? But yeah, I had to be patient with doing the work. It seems like I'm not getting any. I wonder if I'm even linked to YouTube because that's usually where all the questions come, or they're not coming through. Okay, well, I'm gonna have to check. Maybe one of my links isn't on edit. Let's see. Oh well, that didn't work out. All right, so I'll finish this up and then try again this weekend because it doesn't seem like anything's going through. Anybody say hi if you're able to hear me and see me on YouTube land, because this is a good way to test. Because I do have an interview with Dan Buglio, and I don't want this to go haywire. I want to make sure it works because if it doesn't, then I got to do it on Zoom. So this is a good way to test. Okay, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna go off. Oh, Paulette. Okay, here you go. Are you? Yeah, you're from YouTube. Hey, just got here. All right, everything's coming on. All right. Yeah, it showed that there was couple people on, and then it was less, and then because I'm supposed to be live on YouTube, Facebook, both pages, and Instagram. If anybody's on Instagram, give me a shout out just so I know. And also X, I'm supposed to be on there. Cool. So yeah, if anybody's got any questions, go ahead. Or any discussions, let me know. We'll go over it. So yeah, we got. Just wanted to double check here. We got Dan Buglio, 4 p.m. April the 18th. That's Eastern time. So yeah, back to what I was saying earlier. I'll just keep this going for another 10 minutes, and I'm gonna check out my connection. But anyway, so what was happening was, yeah, I started getting into the swing of things. I kept doing my walks. I was doing my walks I've been doing my walks ever since I started this journey. And I noticed that my walking, even though I was dealing with 70 symptoms, I did more during my recovery than I did physically all my life, right? More than I was when I was, maybe not as much as when I was riding my bike with my friends when I was, in grade school or whatever. But even then, it's almost comparable, right? I was more active than I was in my teens, my 20s, obviously more than my 30s. And it's just crazy how I kept with it. I enjoy it. I loved going for walks because it was I found something that I really enjoyed. Before that, I never cared for walking. It never, sure, once in a blue moon, you go for a walk. You're like, yeah, that was nice. Cool. Anyway, back to watching TV, back to my routine, go to work, come home, veg in front of the TV, do nothing, right? That was my routine. Mm. And it's like I wasn't even aware of my shitty routine, right? I was miserable, hated my job, had no motivation. If we did do something that was like go to the beach that was exciting, I would maybe enjoy, I would enjoy it on a scale like 4 out of 10. Well, now, when I do something like that, I enjoy it like 10 out of 10, right? There's a different enjoyment level because, before I was like asleep. I wasn't even aware of my programming that I had with myself, right? Um, let's see. So yeah, that was the first 6 months, and it was difficult because the first 6 months you're dealing with 70 symptoms, and you're still pushing yourself to go out. I was nauseous half the time, dizzy, felt like I was drunk on a boat, holding the walls. Lots of doubt. Oh, here we go. Just struggling, staying in a good place, implementing things like we need to from bed, pretty much 24/7. Yep. Let's see this. Yeah, that's showing. Yeah, that's how I was in the beginning. And I was going down rabbit holes while I was in bed, trying these different supplements that these gurus on YouTube would mention. And I started just randomly like taking iron and copper. I remember I was taking copper, and it let me sleep, but then I had a horrible reaction to it. It was like I was probably dealing with some dangerous supplements that I shouldn't have been, effing around. And I'm so thankful that I maybe something above told me, hey, what are you doing? Don't. Maybe my guides are taking care of me, or my higher self was going, hey, okay, this is enough. Here's your path. You got to go on this path. You've been, struggling enough. You've been fucking. This is your path. This is what you got to do. Stick to it no matter what. And I started getting answers. And of course, while I had the path, I was making mistakes and falling on my face and still going to the hospital and giving into my insecurities and fears, and the alarms, because it felt real. It felt like I was really dying. Every third day, I thought I was dying. Hard reacting so bad to literally every food, smell so long already. Yeah. I took me about a year and a half to. I kept eating my safe foods for a year and a half, and then I started training on foods, and then I still had flares, but I was at a position where I could prolong my flares longer, And when I started feeling better, because what I would do is I'd get a flare, go to my safe foods, get out of my safe foods and train on new foods, get a flare, go back to my. So I was doing this thing all the time. That was my way of getting leverage. And then eventually, when I would go back to my safe foods, I wouldn't. I'd go, you know what? I'm not going to go back to my safe foods yet. I'm going to sit here in the danger and drag out this flare a little bit longer. And there was a period where I dragged out flares for a period of 8 months straight doing this, right? So I'd be in a flare, I'd be like, all right, I could go back to my safe foods and it'll be gone within, a week, but I want to drag this out because I was at a level where the flares they were horrible, but they weren't, I could still live life and I knew them. They were like my old buddies, like my old buddies that are fucking annoying, right? I'm like, oh, I got the, stabbing pains, gas, and um, either bloody diarrhea 1 minute or it was uh, constipation, right? Stools that felt like they were diamonds. So um, yeah, so I just kept going with that. Yeah, hard reacting, literally every food. Yeah, so eventually I waited, you know, a year and a half. Then I started training on the foods, getting the flares, and I would drag out the flares longer. So I'm like, no, you know what? No, no, no. We're gonna drag this out a bit. We're not gonna run to our safe foods. We're gonna drag this out as long as we can, right? And I would feel like shit. And it wasn't like a trick where you do the trick and then you go, aha, gotcha, it worked. No, it was, I'm gonna stretch this out, this flare, and it's like, well, okay, you're gonna suffer the consequences, and I did. I sat there and suffered the consequences, but I sat in the danger of the flares, but with a message of safety of, okay, I'm allowing you to do this, but I'm still gonna engage. So when you're engaging in life, that's messages of safety, right? You're engaging in life. You're doing your routine. You got your schedule, routine, routine, routine. You're sticking to it. That is all these little things that we do when we don't resist, right? We allow things to be. We're elevating, right? You're ascending, right? You're boosting and elevating your mood. This sends messages of safety. It's all these combinations, and right, and when you're doing your visuals, you're sitting in dose, dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins, which also sends messages of safety. So a combination of all these things together, right? Being out in nature, um, going for your walks, movement, all these things, all the 9 pillars now. Before it was 5, then I moved it to 7. Now it's 9. Um, they all send messages of safety in combination, right? And the reason why I have 9 is because I separated some of these pillars because I think some people are missing some of these because they were put together. So, a portion of it would be overlooked. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to separate these things because they make more sense. They're very important. They shouldn't be bunched together. So that's what I did. Um, Sarah Z with the visualizations, I found myself loving that so much for the first 3 days, then had a big uptick in symptoms. Yep, even though I know it's a good sign. Yes, it's challenging to really get into them now. Right, so you're gonna have the ups and downs, roller coasters of it. There was times where I was, I'm looking forward to my symptoms, and all of a sudden it depends on the week too, right? If you're dealing with a stressful week, all of a sudden you're in a setback, and then you're looping on a symptom. Maybe there's a symptom that showed up, and you're focused on that. It's hard to get into a visualization also when you have that issue because you're trying to focus on your visualizations, but the brain's going, no, 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 it's clock block, and he's like, no, fuck the visualization, no, you gotta focus on this fucking thing, nah, yeah, and it's magnifying it. So that's why before I start my visuals, I like to do 10 minutes of just finishing off anything that's been overlapping or started that morning, because that morning usually, or every morning, the brain went, here you go, right? And then I was like, oh, that's what we're dealing with today. All right, so 10 minutes, I would just allow that the feelings and what if thoughts, catastrophizing, whatever it is, emotions, I let them be there. I feel them. I go, come on, show me what you got. Bring me the fear, show me what you got. And then I would engage. And then I'd be like, okay, now we can go into my visuals because I cut out the half of the energy so that I can finally focused on my visuals. But there was times where the entire hour I just couldn't get into the rhythm. I kept being sidetracked by another thought, and I just wasted an hour. I might have started, there's 55 minutes in or 50 minutes in, and I'm like, fuck, I barely, the clock is going. You've only almost been doing an hour and you didn't do shit, right? All I did was just organize my space. I'm like, "Oh, I'm trying to get into a flow. It's not happening. I might go, finally for 1 minute. And I'm like, whatever. I did my hour. It wasn't the best, but I did my hour, right? As long as I went through the motions, you know, think greater than you feel. You do it anyway, and it's like, our hour's done. Okay, we're done. Let's engage. Let's keep going with our schedule, and that's what I had to do. Here we go. Yeah, live in reactions trying to survive, or live in reactions. Right? No safe anything close to and blah, 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 at points ridiculous. Yeah, and this is where you also have to be aware of your old behavior patterns. I know we're here talking about symptoms. That's fine. But if you notice when you're at home, are you retelling the old story of, oh, I feel this, or I can't do that, or oh, I've been, but I've been dealing with, but for 16 years, yeah. Well, what will happen is in the morning I'll get up and then I'll deal with this, and then I can barely walk, I can barely get out of bed, and then I gotta go into the kitchen, and by then I'm like, so when you're retelling that story, you're replaying that old program. What we want to do is we want to introduce a new program. So when you're, you have to be aware of the old program. Stop telling the old program. Stop talking about symptoms. Stop, engaging in negative talk or anything that does not support your recovery. You have to be aware of it and then change it, because we don't want to reaffirm that the alarms that it sent was correct, right? Because then we're saying, yes, there's danger here, because I'm talking about danger all the time. I'm talking about how I can barely get up. And then check this out. When I get up, I'm fucking tired. And I can't go to the kitchen because of this. Yeah, well, I've been dealing with that for 16 fucking years. I can, when you talk like that, you're reaffirming to the brain, yes, thank you for sending that alarm. You're correct to put that on. I'm obviously telling you we are in danger. So it keeps that alarm on. And on we go with the cycle, right? So you have to break those patterns of the old program. And it's very difficult because we don't even notice that we do it. So you have to almost set your alarm for, almost an hour every hour or every 2 hours. And when it goes off, go, okay, what am I thinking about? Is this going to go towards, am I resisting? Okay, I'm not resisting. Good. Am I thinking about anything negative am I thinking about doubt? Am I trying to figure out something? Am I analyzing? Am I ruminating? Am I, right? And if you are, adjust. Be aware of it, right? And this takes, time before you'll be able to be aware of it without having that clock set to ring off and go, hey, are you aware? Oh, no, I'm aware. I already got that. So you don't have to set it anymore. Be like, oh shit, I'm aware of that. Oh, look at that. I'm catching old behavior patterns. Oh, look at that. Ah, okay, I got to change that. I got to stop doing that. Blah, blah, blah. And then the brain's able to start to change the program into the new program of safety, which brings your baseline down. And when the baseline comes down and your bucket starts to empty, the security system starts turning off alarms, which is symptoms, mental and physical. Yeah. JC Harms. Hello from Germany. Yeah. Wie geht's? Yep. Right. So, yeah. So we want to be aware of all the ways that we can bring down our baseline. And there's so many things that we don't know accumulatively. I can sometimes have problems saying that word. Accumulatively, that, in all areas in our journey, in our behavior patterns, there's little things that show, keep the alarm on, keep the alarm on. Hey, keep the alarm on, right? The way we respond, how we talk, how we think, what we say. And we have to break that pattern so that we can start changing these behavior patterns so that the bucket baseline can come down and turn off alarms. Because if the baseline's moving up, because we have inner battle, right? When you resist, you have an inner battle, because what you resist persists. So it's like when you're surviving through something, when you're white knuckling through an exposure or a situation or catastrophizing or trying to figure out, analyze, rush something out, distract, right? Trying to get rid of. You're having an inner battle. And when you have an inner battle, inner battles, right, bring up a baseline, right? An inner battle brings up a baseline. What does that do? The baseline, what does this represent? This represents your alarm system. This is like a system going, a dial. Like it's like a nuclear power plant. We're almost going to have an overload, right? It's going to blow. It's going to blow, right? So the system goes up. More danger, 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 danger. We need to have an answer because we're perceiving danger. We need an answer. We're either going to fight or flee, right? And we need to, because we're perceiving that there's a tiger on your back. So either you're going to fight it and kill it, or you're going to fucking flee, right? So either one works, but we need to have an answer. It's a sense of urgency. So when the baseline goes up, how is the brain going to send alarms to you? How is it going to get your attention? It has to send alarms. When it goes up, you know, it's like more alarm, more alarm, more alarm, and then it comes down and goes, right? And when you're at zero, no alarms, like it's on the baseline's back to zero, it goes like this. Stand by, right? Nothing. Quiet. Peace. Rest and digest. All the systems in your body align again and they work together. You're detoxing, you're digesting, right? All the things everywhere in your body starts to regulate. You start to heal an old cut that has been taking forever to heal. It finally heals, right? All the systems start to regulate and you're able to, you get the flu, you feel like 2% of it. You don't even notice you had it. It doesn't linger for 3 to 4 weeks or 3 months. Right? You get a cold. Didn't even have a sniffle. Maybe a half a drop. Right? Right? When normally you'd be dealing with this shit for 3 months or a month. So that's why it's important to empty your baseline or empty your bucket and bring down your baseline so that the body can do its job and heal and regulate and catch up with all the old homework that it's been avoiding because it's trying to keep you alive. So you got like an office desk full of paperwork, all these files piling up, right? And then you're fucking throwing some more shit on it, going, oh yeah, by the way, we got a flu. Oh yeah, by the way, we got a cold. Oh yeah, can you take care of this too? And it's like, dude, I'm just trying, I'm barely keeping you alive. But when you help it by regulating it, right, by doing all the pillars, you're bringing down the alarm system, so it sends less alarms, less shit to do, right? You're changing the program. Then all this paperwork is finally, being organized, figured out, done. There's nothing on your desk anymore. Everything's figured out, and it's able to tackle other things that are, important with ease. It doesn't even have to tackle it. It just goes, oh, you, come here. Out. See you later. Okay, cool. Well, what do you got? Nothing? Yeah, I'm just going to chill out. Yeah, and there's no alarms, by the way. Do you notice that? How quiet it is? Do you notice how happy you are? You notice how your moods are regulated? How you're happier longer? No, that's because there's nothing to worry about. There's no lions, right? And if there is a lion, it's because there really is a lion. You know what? We're going to kill that lion or run away from that lion. And guess what? Once that lion is gone, I'm going to have the alarm turned off right away. It won't linger for 5 years. No, it's going to be turned off right away. And it's over back to baseline, to zero, back to standby, right? So the alarm will be back to standby. That's what I was trying to say. And you're back to your happy mood, right? You don't have to do this whole program again because you did it right. You did it right this time. You took the time to regulate. It took me 2.5, 3 years, right? And that's not to say that everybody else is going to be going through that. It just means that that's what it took for me. I had a lot of delays. Shit wasn't so straightforward, but I needed that to learn. I needed that to go through that so that I would gain the leverage and the knowledge that I would need to move forward. It's, you gain the leverage. Wisdom is information that goes towards that goal. And when you get to that goal, it's not over because life keeps throwing you curveballs. So this is a lifestyle for me. This isn't something that I'm just going to stop and that's it. All the things that I've learned, I'm using every day. And it's not like I'm doing a program anymore. It's not like I'm doing something extra. I enjoy all this stuff that I'm doing. And it also helps me with other things, with relationships, businesses, friendships and health stuff, everything. Because what you're learning here works across the board in your life and spiritually. It's like I bet you it was spiritual teachings that were just translated into what I did physically, right? We're manipulating vibrations and energy. And it's the exact same thing. You allow something to be, you don't try to resist it, push it away, don't analyze it, let it do its thing, and then you engage what you prefer, and it just figures itself out. Alrighty, so yeah, I just want to go online today for a bit. I'm gonna go again sometime this weekend because I gotta do a couple more tests. I want to make sure that all these different streams are running because I got YouTube, like, and also join me on Instagram, Mindful Gardener, on the Facebook groups. I have a private one and the page. And yeah, TikTok, if it doesn't get banned. But yeah, join me on all those platforms. And I'm going to try to do a couple more tests, probably a little bit shorter, just to make sure that everything's working correctly for when I have Dan Buglio on. And yeah, put that in your calendar. If you have any questions for him, write it down so that when the show comes, you can type a question in and we can get this answered, hopefully. All right. Okay, so I'm going to sign off, but thanks for coming out. I'll make a post when I'm live next. I usually do it on the YouTube posts, so that people are aware when I'm coming on next. And I'm going to do some more tests, and then we'll answer some questions. I'll tell some more stories and stuff, and more, topics of my journey and how I recovered with this crazy, journey. But you know what? It's a gift because it's forcing you to change your life, and you gain a lot of knowledge from it. And right now I feel healthier and better than I have in the past, oof, since I was in my early 20s, right? Before I started being a binge drinker and a party animal and smoking cigarettes and just being up to no good. Awesome. So, yep. Thanks a lot. Thanks, Sarah Z. We'll talk soon, and I'll make a post, and then we'll meet again. Awesome.